Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. With this Sabad that we're about to recite, we switch to a section within Rag Maj that is called Ashtpadiyan. These are Sabads that have 8 verses. Asht meaning 8, Pada meaning verse. And we begin today with a recitation from Rag Maj Ashtpadiyan Mahalla Pehla. This is the composition of the first Nanak, Baba Patsha himself, and is to be sung in Kar Pehla, which is the first clef or beat, for those of you musically inclined. Ik Oankar Satgur Prasad. It begins with an invocation to the one all-pervasive being who is experienced through the guidance of the Good Enlightener. What I will do, because it is a longish Shabad, is to first recite as we ordinarily do in the original, and then read through a free translation before we try to interpret it. So here is the recitation. Rag Maj Ashtpadiyan Mahalla Pehla, Kar Pehla, Ik Oankar Satgur Prasad, Sabad Rangaye Hukam Sabaye, Sachi Dargah Mahal Bulaye, Sache Deen Dayal Mere Sahiba, Sache Manpati Amaniya, Haun Wari Jiyo Wari, Sabad Suhavaniya, Amrit Naam Sada Sukhadata, Gurmati Man Vasavaniya Rahao, Na ko mera haun kis kera, Sacha Thakur Tribhavan mera, Haun mein kar jaye ganeri, Kari avgan pachotavaniya, Hukam pachane so har gun vakhane, Gur ke sabd naam nisane, Sabna ka dar lekha sache chhutas, Naam suhavaniya, Manmukh ਭੂਲਾ ਠੌਰ ਨ ਪਾਏ, ਜਮਦਰ ਬੱਦਾ ਝੋਟਾਂ ਖਾਏ, ਬਿਨ ਨਾਵੇਂ ਕੋ ਸੰਗ ਨ ਸਾਥੀ, ਮੁਕਤੇ ਨਾਮ ਧਿਆਵਣਿਆ, ਸਾਖਤ ਕੂੜੇ ਸੱਚ ਨ ਭਾਵੈ, ਦੁਬਦਾ ਪਾਦਾ ਆਵੇ ਜਾਵੇ, ਲਿਖਿਆ ਲੇਖ ਨ ਮੇਟੇ ਕੋਈ, ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਮੁਕਤ ਕਰਾਵਣਿਆ, ਪਈ ਅੜੇ ਪਿਰ ਜਾਤੋ ਨਾਹੀ, ਝੂਠ ਵਿਛੁੰਨੀ ਰੋਵੇ ਤਾਹੀ, ਅਵਗਣ ਮੁੱਠੀ ਮਹਿਲ ਨ ਪਾਏ, ਅਵਗਣ ਗੁਣ ਬਖਸ਼ਾਵਣਿਆ, ਪਈ ਅੜੇ ਜਿਨ ਜਾਤਾ ਪਿਆਰਾ, ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਬੂਝੇ ਤਤ ਵਿਚਾਰਾ, ਆਵਣ ਜਾਣਾ ਠਾਕ ਰਹਾਏ, ਸੱਚੇ ਨਾਮ ਸਮਾਵਣਿਆ, ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਬੂਝੇ ਕਥ ਕਹਾਵੈ, ਸੱਚੇ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਸਾਚੋ ਭਾਵੈ, ਨਾਨਕ ਸੱਚ ਕਹੇ ਬੇਨੰਤੀ, ਸੱਚ ਮਿਲੇ ਗੁਣ ਗਾਵਣਿਆ. And now here is the free English translation, the transcreation, rather. Those who are imbued with or guided by the Sabad, which is the narrative of the Good Enlightener, are in complete harmony with Hukam, the natural order. Their minds have reached their true threshold. My benevolent master self, I sincerely seek your satisfying embrace. I am bowled over by those who have adorned themselves with the Sabad. Instill Gurmat in the mind and drink of the life-giving and life-affirming elixir of self-knowledge. Rahao. This is the pause, the pankti that we have to dwell on. Instill Gurmat, it says, in the mind, and then drink the Amrit, or the life-giving, life-affirming nectar of self-knowledge. The world lives and acts out of possessiveness of haume. Na ko mera, hau kis kera. But who belongs to me? And who do I belong to when everything is fleeting and transient? Only the eternal Master is permanent and lives in all planes of existence. The narrative of the Good Enlightener gives insight into the signs of Hukam. Through self-knowledge, recognize Hukam and conform to it. Act out of the enlightened mind and be free. Freedom of action, that is where one is indifferent to the outcome, that is when your actions are truly free. That freedom of action comes only when guided by the self. No friend, no companion can provide that insight. Bin nawe ko sang na sathi. And the ego-driven, those who are acting out of the ego, constantly meet with resistance because they are attaching outcomes within time to what they do. I have to have this today, or something must happen by this time. So time itself is a bondage of sorts. It binds you to this expectation of outcomes over and over again. And the sakat, the haume-driven mind, marches to the tune of its own ego and falls out of step with Hukam. It is caught in self-doubt, and that self-doubt triggers a cycle of creation and recreation of the same scenario over and again, and it gets caught in its own web. And for it, the only escape is through Guru wisdom. The Jeev, sentient consciousness that is unaware of its higher dimension. Our minds are not aware of the higher dimensions because we live within the limitations of the senses. The world we live in is a material world and relates only with our senses. And so the mind is essentially cut off from its ultimate source, and that is the root of anxiety and angst. And because we do not have the discernment, we can't find that higher dimension. But through Guru wisdom, the mind can be trained to perceive, intuitively become aware of that dimension of the self, which the Guru calls the beloved. Pyara. When that destination is seen or perceived, or one becomes intuitively aware of, then there is clarity, no wandering anymore. You go straight for the goal then. Through Guru wisdom then, the indescribable experience of harmony with Hukam is experienced. And Nanak makes this very truthful submission. He says, cultivate divine virtues and attune yourself to Hukam by acting out of an enlightened state of being. So the takeaway from this, obviously, is the counsel for us to follow the lead of those who have instilled the teachings of the Guru Enlightener in their hearts. We need to follow them. How vari jiyo vari sabd suhavanaya, amrit naam sada sukhadata gurmati man vasavanaya. we need to follow the lead of those who have done this, who have accomplished this. And harmonizing with Hukam, as we all know, is the foundational tenet of Sikhi. That's the root. Everything that we prepare for is to be able to harmonize with the natural order. And here the word Sabad, which recurs frequently and needs a little attention. We've noted elsewhere that it is a word that has a bipolar connotation. At one end of the spectrum, it is the word with a capital W, the unwritten law, the unspoken language, the sound of silence. In that essence, it is too subtle for us, for the physical senses to grasp. And that's what the Guru was saying when he was saying that we are trapped in the senses and we can't really grasp our higher dimension. So that is the Sabad. Yet, at the other end, this sound, this Sabad, in its fullness is in everything. Although its manifestation may vary, it reverberates in each one of us. Guru Nanak, in his response to the Siddha Yogis, asserts that the sound principle abides in us. Though it is indescribable, yet I find it eminent everywhere. That is to say, it is visible or a material expression in everything. This Sabad then exists in us as well, in the individual. And in the individual, it exists as the immanent inner voice of that timeless one, the Akal Purukh. It is also referred in Sikhi as the Guru or the Satgurus. And an individual in whom this voice finds its fullest expression is also called a Guru or a Satguru. And when this expression of the Shabad is articulated in the form of words, as in the sixth scripture, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it is called Bani or Gurbani. Note that Sikhs refer to their scripture as the manifestation of the eternal Shabad Guru, that found expression through the person of Nanak, the Guru. Guru then should be understood as that active transforming dimension of Shabad that exists in humans as a potentiality. Shabad Guru is the channel of communication that mediates between Naam and the Self, which reveals Naam as Hukam. And that is what we have to attune ourselves to. It is available, not accessible immediately, because, as Barney says, as long as the mind is in a state of flux and unrest with thoughts of I amness or of the ego, the Shabad fails to inspire or to attract. It is veiled by Haume. On that note, until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.